Welcome to the deep dive.
Ah,
So if you own a car, you've probably been there. You're driving, you hear that sudden sharp tick, and then you see it.
that tiny little star on your windshield.
Exactly. And most of us, we just sigh and think, okay, I'll deal with that next week. A minor nuisance.
But that's where we're going wrong. Our sources today are pretty clear that this isn't minor at all. In fact, that little chip is an extremely urgent problem.
Extremely urgent.
It's a compromise to your car's basic safety structure. And delaying a repair even by a day or two is a huge gamble.
And that's really the mission for this deep dive. We're going to unpack the physics of why that little chip can turn into a huge crack, seemingly overnight.
Right, and how that urgency, it's measured in safety, in dollars, and especially with modern cars, in technology.
So the key takeaway right at the top, there's a timeline.
There is. The experts say you've got about 24 to 48 hours to get it looked at. Any longer than that, and you're really increasing the risk of it spreading and, more importantly, compromising some of your car's most critical safety features.
Okay, so let's unpack that. I think we need to completely reset our idea of what a windshield actually is. We think of it as just a barrier against the wind.
Keeps the bugs out.
Right. But it's so much more than that. So what role is it actually playing in, say, a serious accident?
It's really the unsung hero of the vehicle's safety cage. I mean, most people just don't realize this, but an intact windshield provides up to 45% of your car's cabin strength in a rollover.
45%.
Yeah, 45. It's what's actively stopping the roof from crushing the people inside.
That is a colossal number. It suggests the glass is, it's not passive, it's actively resisting force.
It's because it's laminated glass. So it's two layers of glass with a tough plastic layer. It's called PVB, sandwiched in between.
Okay.
And that's what stops it from shattering. When that whole assembly is bonded to the car's frame, it acts like a giant structural beam. A crack just completely undermines that strength.
So that's the structural role.
Yeah.
But you mentioned other safety features. I was surprised to read that it's also tied to the airbags. How does that work?
Oh, it's crucial, especially for the passenger side.
The passenger.
Yeah. So when that airbag deploys, it's incredibly forceful, and it needs a solid backstop to rebound from, to protect the passenger.
And that backstop is the windshield.
Exactly. But if the glass is cracked, it's weakened. The force of the airbag can actually just blow the windshield right out of the frame.
So the airbag it fires out into open air, it becomes useless.
Precisely. It's completely useless. So you've compromised the rollover protection and the airbag function with one little chip.
And that's before we even get to the most immediate day-to-day risk.
Vision, right.
Just trying to see out of it.
Absolutely. The moment a crack appears, it starts refracting light. It creates glare distortion.
Especially at night, with oncoming headlights or driving into the sun.
It's a constant, immediate hazard that directly increases your risk of an accident long before a rollover ever happens.
Okay, so the structural risk is clear. But the real sense of urgency comes from just how fast this damage spreads.
Yeah.
Our sources say a crack can grow by inches in just a few hours.
Mm-hmm.
So that 24 to 48-hour window is not an exaggeration. What's driving that?
It's basically a constant tug of war between physics and the environment. The glass is never static. It's always expanding and contracting. And the main driver is temperature.
This brings us to thermal stress, which I think is the real aha moment here.
Yes.
We've all done it. It's a freezing morning. You get in the car, you blast the defroster, and you hear that awful sound.
That pop. Yeah, that is the textbook example of this failure. The inside of the glass gets hot and expands while the outside is still freezing cold and contracted.
So you're literally pulling the glass apart at its weakest point.
You're creating immense stress right on that existing flaw. A tiny, stable chip can become a 6-inch unrepairable crack in just a few minutes.
And that's just temperature. We're also just driving.
Right. Every single mile you drive, every pothole, every bump, it sends vibrations through the car's frame.
And the glass flexes with it.
And that little crack is the focus point for all that stress, forcing it to spread.
And I found this interesting, though. Location of the chip matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would have thought one in the center is worst, but the sources say cracks near the edge spread faster.
They do, yeah, because the edges of the windshield experience the most flex. That's where the glass meets the body of the car, and there's just more movement and stress there.
Which also explains why local weather is such a big factor. The sources mentioned rainy climates, like the Pacific Northwest, as being particularly bad for this.
Oh, absolutely. That's moisture infiltration. Water gets into those tiny fissures in the crack. Then, if the temperature drops below freezing, that water expands as it turns to ice.
And it just wedges the crack open from the inside.
It forces it wider, and even if it doesn't freeze, just the cycle of water getting in and evaporating creates pressure. A wet climate is just a constant accelerant.
So that little chip is a ticking time bomb, basically. Now let's talk about the money, because this is where acting fast becomes a no-brainer. What's the real cost difference between fixing it now versus later?
It's staggering, and it all comes down to repair versus replacement. If you act fast, while it's still a small crack, usually under 6 inches, a repair costs between, say, $50 and $150.
And here's the key detail for everyone listening.
Yeah.
Your insurance probably covers that 100%.
Right. Most comprehensive policies will waive your deductible for a repair.
Why do they do that?
Because it saves them money in the long run. They'd rather pay $100 now than have you file a claim for a $1,000 replacement later. So for you, the driver, it's usually free.
A free 30-minute fix.
Right.
But if you wait and it spreads past that 6-inch mark, you're looking at a full replacement. What's that price jump look like?
Well, for a standard car, you're now talking $200 to maybe $500. And now you do have to pay your deductible. So that free fix just became a $500 out-of-pocket expense.
And that's the best case scenario. For modern cars, the ones with all the new tech, it gets much, much worse.
We're talking about cars with ADS, or Advanced Driver Assistance Systems.
The lane keeping assist, automatic braking, all of that.
Exactly. Those systems use cameras and sensors that are mounted directly onto the windshield. If you replace the glass, all of that has to be recalibrated.
And that's not cheap.
Not at all. With the recalibration, the total cost can easily go over $1,000, sometimes up to $1,500.
Wow. Just to make sure the car's computer brain is aimed correctly.
Pretty much. And we can get into why that's so complex, but first there's also the legal risk to consider.
Right. You can actually get a ticket for this.
You can. Laws in many places, like Oregon, for example, prohibit driving with damage that impairs your vision. That ticket can add another $150 or more to your bill.
So when you add it all up, a potential $1,200 replacement, plus your deductible, plus a ticket, versus a free repair if you act quickly. The math is pretty simple.
It really is.
Okay, so everything hinges on that word, repairable. What are the hard and fast rules for that?
The main one is size. As we said, the damage generally has to be shorter than 6 inches.
Like the length of a dollar bill, basically.
That's a good way to think of it, yeah. The process itself is quick, maybe 30 minutes. They inject a special resin and cure it.
But size isn't the only thing, is it? You can have a tiny chip that still needs a full replacement.
Absolutely. Location is critical. If the crack reaches the edge of the windshield, it's an automatic replacement.
Why is that?
Because it means the structural bond of the whole unit is compromised. A resin patch can't fix that. The whole safety cage is at risk.
And what about if it's right in front of the driver?
Also a strict rule. If the damage is directly in the driver's line of sight, it's almost always a replacement.
Even if it's small?
Even if it's tiny. Because the repair resin, while it's strong, can leave a very slight optical distortion. And you just can't risk any distortion, no matter how small, in that critical viewing area.
So you're trading structural integrity for optical clarity.
You have to prioritize the driver's vision there. And then finally, if the damage goes through both layers of glass or if there are just too many cracks, it's got to be replaced.
Okay, let's walk through the actual fix. For that 30-minute repair, what are they actually doing?
The main goal is to fill that empty space and make it clear again. First, they clean the area, sometimes using a vacuum to get every speck of debris and moisture out.
That sounds important.
It's critical. Then they inject this specialized resin under pressure so it flows into every single tiny fissure. And then the magic happens. They hit it with a UV light.
And that hardens it.
Instantly. It creates a permanent structural bond that stops the crack from ever spreading again.
Okay, so that's the repair. For a full replacement, though, it's more involved. They take out the old glass, apply new adhesive.
Yeah.
But you mentioned a cure time. It's not immediately back to full strength, is it?
No, and this is so important. You can usually drive the car after about an hour, but that's just for the initial bond. The full structural strength of that adhesive, the stuff that gives you the 45% rollover protection, that takes a full 24 hours to cure.
So you shouldn't be, I don't know, slamming doors or going off-roading right away.
Please don't. Yeah, you can compromise that seal and reduce its effectiveness in a crash.
And finally, let's circle back to that ADS requirement. For all these new cars, why is that recalibration step so essential and so expensive?
It's all about precision, down to the millimeter. The lane-keeping camera is mounted on the glass, and it's calibrated at the factory to see the road at a very specific angle.
Okay.
When you install a new windshield, even a perfect installation changes that angle slightly. It's unavoidable.
So the camera that's supposed to be reading the white lines on the road might be aimed a tiny bit too high or a tiny bit to the left.
Exactly. And a tiny bit is all it takes for the system to fail. It might mistake a shadow for a lane line or not see a stopped car in time for the emergency brake to work.
So the recalibration is basically teaching the car's computer what straight ahead looks like again.
That's a perfect way to put it. And there are two ways they do it. Static, in the shop, with special targets set up in front of the car.
Like an eye exam for your car.
Kind of, yeah. And the other is dynamic, where a technician actually has to drive the car on the road under specific conditions to let the camera relearn its environment.
And that's where the cost comes from. It's specialized equipment, specialized training. Not every shop can do it.
Right, and it all goes back to the beginning. The life-saving function of that camera depends entirely on the piece of glass it's attached to.
So let's bring this all together. We started with a simple rock chip, and what we found was a critical ticking clock. The main takeaway is that waiting puts your entire safety system at risk.
It does. You're compromising up to 45% of your rollover protection and potentially making your passenger airbag useless. And the physics of it all but guarantee that a delay will lead to a bigger problem.
And the financial side of it is just a massive incentive. An immediate repair is often free, saving you hundreds, maybe even more than $1,000.
Compared to a replacement where you're paying a deductible, paying for a D's recalibration, and maybe even paying a ticket.
It's the ultimate lesson in preventative maintenance, really. And I think this brings up a really interesting final thought for you to consider as you drive away from this deep dive.
Knowing that your car's safety systems are calibrated to the millimeter, that they depend on the exact position of your windshield, it makes you think, doesn't it? How carefully are you vetting who does that simple repair?
You're driving a computer on wheels, but is your maintenance keeping up with the technology? Think about that complexity the next time you see a chip and think, I'll get to it later. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.